Hello and welcome to today's tutorial over installing software from external sources on Ubuntu 15.10 or all the way down to 14.04 and probably will remain relevant for 16.04 going forward. My name is Ben Flanagan. This tutorial was made for the Ubuntu Challenge and Ubuntu in general. If you want to find out more about the Ubuntu Challenge, check out the other videos on our channel. You can look us up on patreon.com or broadcasting.vagueentertainment.com as well. Now, there is some vernacular in this video that will need to be explained. I will try to explain them when I bring them up. If the term is foreign to you and you have no idea what I'm talking about, just kind of listen along, and I think you'll glean the definition by watching the video. Now, I also wanted to make mention that this is going to be a slightly longer video than what we plan on having in the future, as was the first video. There's a lot of information that we have to cover to get everybody up to speed for the quick and easy install videos that will come later on. Now, we are going to have a rating system for the software that we are installing today. Basically, it will go in three categories: discoverability, installability, and updatability, which probably isn't really a word. So you will see on the screen a discover, an install, and an update icon or image, which will be color coded to how we rate it, whether it be easy, hard, near impossible, or not available. The three softwares we are going over are going to be Google Chrome, Spotify, and the last is actually not an application. It is an repository, or a repository, I guess, properly. Repositories, one of those jargon words that I was talking about. A repository is basically any server that stores applications that can be installed on Ubuntu or any other operating system that uses that system to update software or install software or anything of the like. Think of them as little bitty app stores that are hosted and maintained by the companies that make the software. So anyway, with that being said, let's go on to installing the first software. We are going to install Google Chrome. Google Chrome, if you're not familiar with it, it's Google's web browser. A web browser, if you're not familiar with what a web browser is it's this. It's the thing that allows you to go online and find what you're looking for. It is basically, if you get on the internet, you're using a web browser. If you're on Windows, you're using Internet Explorer most likely. If you are on Mac, you're using Safari. If you're on Ubuntu, by default, you're using Firefox. If you're on SteamOS, your default is either the SteamOS browser or one called Iceweasel. But with all that aside, first, discoverability. So here we are on Ubuntu's start page, which is actually using Google as the search engine. If you just type in Chrome, you will most likely get Google Chrome. As you see, it's actually the first couple ones that you have on your list here. So clicking on one of the links, it will bring you to the Google Chrome website. And yes, I've done this before, so I already know kind of how it's going to end up. Google Chrome is actually one of the better, or Google in general is one of the better supporters of Linux in the installation side of things, and more importantly, they have a pretty slick way of setting up Ubuntu. So anyway, go into the download page. You're going to do personal computer, because that's what this is. Download Chrome. This little box pops up asking what system and what operating system you have, and what even 32-bit or 64-bit. Now, if you don't know what your computer is, 32-bit is the safest bet, as most 32-bit applications will run on a 64-bit system. But if your computer is newer than, let's say, 2008, 2009, it is most likely a 64-bit system, regardless how much RAM it has, regardless to the manufacturer. So for the most part, 64-bit is what you're going to look for. Again, 32-bit will work, but it won't be as performant. If you want to look at it from a stripped down as low technical as you possibly can get, but still a little bit better information. If you have a 32-bit application and you have more than 4 gigs of RAM, and that's one of those features that you look at when you buy a computer. If you have more than 4 gigs of RAM, a 32-bit application will not address any more than 4 gigs. So if you have 10 gigs or 12 gigs or 16 gigs or 32 gigs or some other amazing amount of RAM, you just won't be able to see it. Where 64-bit will actually be able to access that RAM. The other benefit is 64-bit versions usually have better multi-core, multi-processor support. It's not always the truth, or it's not always the case, but for the most part it is. So you'll just get better performance all around. Okay, so anyway, you're using Ubuntu, and as you see it says Debian/Ubuntu. Anywhere where you see Debian, it is a deb file. Again, as we talked about in the earlier video, I believe, Ubuntu uses deb files. That is kind of the core underpinnings of Ubuntu is the Debian project. Fedora and OpenSUSE use another one called RPM. You don't have to worry about it. If it says Ubuntu, it works on your system, click on that one. So accept and install. It'll bring a little box, and you'll be asked to use what do you want to open with, or you want to save file. Now in this video, we're just going to go ahead and open it with the Ubuntu Software Center. And then it'll begin the download. So we'll cut it here, and we'll pop back in whenever it gets done downloading. Okay, so now that it is done downloading, as you see, the Ubuntu Software Center pops up, and then brings you to the page. That was nice that it gave us a moment to talk about it. Now, with the Ubuntu Software Center, if it's coming from an external source, it will always say this right here: only install this software if you trust the origin. Now, that is kind of their disclaimer to say we basically don't support this. We don't do updates for this. We do not guarantee that it is not full of viruses and other nasty things. Now, Google Chrome, or Google in general, is a trustworthy source, so you can trust what they have on there. Now, the reason why we do this one first, I'm going to go ahead and hit the install button, as we did in the other videos, and it's installing. So this will give us a chance to kind of talk about what is really special about the Google Chrome installer. It doesn't just install the application, it also adds its repository to the list of sources available to Ubuntu to do updates. So unlike other applications where you just download the deb file off of the developer site, this gives you the ability to, it's kind of a fire and forget. You don't have to worry about the newest version. You don't have to worry about the stability issues. If there is a version of Google Chrome for your operating system that is newer than the one that is currently installed, it will download and install it in the typical way that Ubuntu runs updates. It is also, this is a good moment to talk about how the update systems work in Ubuntu. Every application that is installed, either through the repositories, the ones built in, or external ones that add themselves to the list of sources, is updated as if it was a core application, very much like your smartphone does, like Android or iOS. If there's an update available, it tells you there's an update available, and sometimes even automatically installs them. This is not a new thing, as this was not added in to keep up with cell phones. This was actually a core feature of Ubuntu and most Linux distributions from the onset of their commercial presence, or their presence on the desktop and the servers. So anyway, Google Chrome is now installed. So we'll go ahead and close that sucker down. As you can see, just as a little mention here, it does not add the third-party applications to the launcher. It's not really an issue. You can find anything that's installed, again, by going to the dash in the applications and then just typing in the name of the application. We just installed Google Chrome, and found out that it was a very simple, straightforward process. You just go to their website, click the download button, pick the architecture that you have. Again, 64-bit is usually your go-to version, and away it goes. We talked about how it installs the repository information into the update client, so that way Google Chrome will be updated every time there is a new version available. So all in all, Google Chrome gets green lights on all three categories, with discovery being extremely easy. The install is also very easy, and the update path, or the ability to update it, is done automatically for you. So on to Spotify, which again, I've done this all before, and we have to, so take it as it is. Again, we can go to Spotify.com. Here, I'm just going to type that in instead of searching for it. Oops. Or I can just type in Spotify and hope that the browser is smart enough to find it for me. So here's Spotify.com. If we go to download, we wait because my internet's not so hot. Oh, of course it's going to ask me to sign in. You know, I don't. Okay, I'll cut it here, and I'll be back whenever I'm logged in. Okay, and I'm back. All right, thankfully I apparently did link this to my Facebook account, so that made things a lot easier. As you can see, you have download Spotify for Mac OS, Windows, iOS, Google Play, and Windows Phone, but there is no Linux version, not on the first one. But then if you come down a little bit further, BlackBerry, Kindle Fire, blah, 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 and there's Linux on the lower side. You also have Chromebook at the very bottom, which is interesting. So we click on Linux, and you come to this page. Now, the installation technique that they use is a little bit more involved than Google Chrome, and this is, I would say, probably puts this down in the yellow area. It does require you to open up a terminal, so Control-Alt-T as before. And really, you don't have to think about these commands that much. Just highlighting them with your mouse, if you can do it, right-clicking, copy, Alt-Tab to pull back up the terminal, paste, enter, put in your password. Oh, put in your password correctly. Bunch of gibberish. There you go. That's all you have to do on that. And for the most part, that is the secret of all these command line things, is most of them are relatively easy. If you double click, sorry, let me show you what I'm doing. If you double click on a line of text, or excuse me, I guess it's triple click, it'll select the entire line. I believe that works in a lot of web browsers and a lot of programs, actually. So that's something you didn't know, now you do. Copy that sucker and paste again. And there it goes. Basically what this does is this adds the repository, repository.spotify.com, the channel that you're installing, which a channel is basically like versioning, if you will, and then non-free is basically just saying these are not open source softwares. A lot of them will have main, non-free, universe, and so on and so forth, and each of them are, I guess in essence, a designation on how it is supported, or something along those lines. And then the last part of it, basically it's echoing, which it says like spit it out, and then puts it into the source areas. Okay, so that explains it. You don't need to really know exactly what it does, but that's what that does. Next command, sudo apt-get update. This does not have to be done in the command line. We're doing it in the command line because that is the instructions that they have on their site. So paste. And honestly, if you would like to read what it actually says on the screen here, you can. I've read it several times. Basically, what they're saying is that the current version that they support is 14.04, and that newer versions may not work, may not be supported. And they are one of the many companies that, as I talked about in the previous video, that can't keep up with the speed of Linux development and Ubuntu's development. It's not really a fault of Spotify necessarily. It's just the way it is. As you see, Google Chrome doesn't seem, or Google doesn't seem to have that issue. So it's not a problem with Ubuntu or Linux. It's more of a problem of how the company is structured and how they look at development and how they look at the Linux community as a whole. Okay, so last command on here is sudo apt-get install Spotify. If you watched the previous version, you realize that this installs the software. So hitting enter, it does it all automatically for us. Apparently I've got a couple things that I need to remove there. And it just goes about its day. Now I am not going to, well, I'll go ahead and cut the video. And then when it's installed, I'll come back and we'll go. It has just got done downloading the applications. It is now installing them, or trying to. As you can see, one of the biggest benefits of doing it through the command line is actually getting more information, like what it's actually doing, what recommended packages you have, what it's going to install, so on and so forth. So as it readies the install, we'll hopefully get a decent result. Again, I've done this before, so I could have just skipped this part, but I wanted to go ahead and let you see kind of the issues that you can have with some of these third-party developers. Hopefully they have fixed the problem. I don't think they have. So, all right, now it's unpacking it, which basically it's decompressing it and setting it up. And yay, now we should have Spotify installed, correct? Alright, so again, opening up the dash, typing in Spotify. There's the Spotify client. That's what Chrome should have done. Clicking on it, and nothing. No errors, no no warnings, nothing. You get absolutely nothing from this. Now, this is due to them only supporting 14.04, and the only installation instructions they have is for 14.04. If you go into the community section on Spotify, they have a Linux section, and if you dig through all that noise, you can actually find the instructions. But for the sake of this video, and for the sake of the Ubuntu Challenge users and everyone else involved, I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to do it. Now, it's actually relatively simple, and we won't even do it through the command line because for the most part, we're trying to make this look like it's something easy to use. So, opening up the dash and going to the application section, if you type in software, you can learn to spell, you'll see several things on the pop-up. You have the Ubuntu Software Center, Software Updater, and Software and Updates. Clicking on Software and Updates will bring you to a little dialog that gives you kind of more granular control over where the installation software comes from. As you can see, you can pick the country of origin, main servers, which are over in UK, the servers over here in the United States. If there is a specific one you want to use, you can change that. It's really not that necessary. Other software is where we're actually going to be. And this shows all the repositories that have been linked to, added to the system. As you see, I've got quite a few of them. Almost every repository adds two lines to it. You have the main and then the source code. For the most part, you don't really need the source code unless you're a developer, so it's turned off by default. It makes things run smoother, faster. So scroll on down. I know it's kind of intimidating with all this stuff on here. Yours won't look so bad. Now, once you find the repository.spotify.com, you will go down to edit. Under Edit, you will change distribution to testing. And say OK. Ask you for a password. And sooner or later, it will change that to testing. I hate it when it does things slower than you expect them to. The other way, and since you already have the terminal system open, and if you wanted to take all these steps and kind of encapsulate them into one thing and not having to worry about the whole, well, it doesn't work. Once you have put in all the installation instructions that you see on the screen here, from here to here. Here, where you see the second step here, where it says adding the repository, where you see repository.spotify.com stable non-free, changing stable here to testing will fix the problem. Now, I unfortunately put it in the wrong way to show you that it doesn't work if you do it the way that they have it on their website. So I'm going to have to be a little bit geeky. And I also showed you how to do it through the GUI interface. But I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do it through the command line too, because it's good to. Now you type in sudo etc apt. Oh, sorry, I'm crazy. Sudo nano, which is nano is an editor. Sudo or sudo. Depending on who says the word, is a command to allow you to be the system administrator. By default, every user on your system is just a user. Now, they can be in part of the admin group, but they have to be in the sudo approved users list in order for you to do anything administrative. Again, this is one of those built for security in mind options that sometimes people balk at, but really, truly, it's the way to go. Once you get used to it, it makes perfect sense. Okay, so opens up this little line here. We come in here, we delete that, type in testing. Control O for write, enter, Control X for exit, and then we type in sudo apt-get update. And away it goes. Now, these are more commands that probably are good for you to know, just in case you ever have problems with the software center or an application breaks or something like that. Any command on Linux, well, I shouldn't say any command, most commands on Linux are done through apt-get, or actually, let's just say any command line command for the most part. I'm sure there's at least one or two that don't. The command space hyphen minus dash, whatever you prefer to use. This one here, that's a dash. Dash H will give you the help commands for that program, so you can find out how to basically use it. Apt-gets are very simple. Apt-get install, apt-get remove, apt-get update, and upgrade. Sudo apt-get upgrade will hopefully, yep, there you go. As you can see, now that we have testing installed, it automatically finds the Spotify client. You say yes, which is the default, so you could have just hit enter too, or as well. It'll unpack the new client, do some doodads, which apparently some of the update was actually the colors of the icons, which is kind of funny. Clicking on Spotify now brings up Spotify. Hooray! Okay, so Spotify. In the big scheme of things, discoverability is still pretty good. Going to the download page, you just have to look around just a little bit to find the Linux version. And they just call it Linux as opposed to Ubuntu or Fedora or any of the distributions. It's just Linux. But once you get to that page, you see that they have defaulted to supporting Ubuntu as the primary operating system of choice, but they use the LTS version, which is now 3 years old. Excuse me, that's not right. It's only a year old. But again, when you iterate every 6 months, that is, they're 3 releases behind, nearly 4 now. Some of the underpinning libraries that play music or videos or whatever have changed, and you have to have the newer version. The installation itself is a little bit wonky, So we're going to say it's probably about a yellow, maybe even red. It's possible. It just requires a little bit of tinkering under the hood. You can do it either command line way or the graphical interface way. Due to a single line in this command here, this top one, step 1 even, you really cannot do the installation without using the command line. So we're going to put this definitely in the yellow category. And then upgradability, because you're adding a repository, upgrade should be done automatically for you. So yay to that. That's definitely green. And that is how you install Spotify on Ubuntu 15.10. Okay, last but not least, we are going to be installing a third-party repository called GetDeb. Now, the guys at GetDeb do an amazing job, and I cannot tell you enough how much I think that the world would be a worse place, or at least the Ubuntu community would be a worse place without these guys. So show your support to them. They have a Patreon page, I believe, a Flatter thing, and you name it. They take donations from anybody. I'm sure that they're probably even on Buy This Dev a Beer site, if that even still exists. So going to Google, type in GetDeb as just the way it sounds, and it is actually in the show notes below. So if you guys want to add this to there, if you are if you are a user currently in the Ubuntu challenge, your machine, please feel free to add this. You guys will just love all the software that's available. If you're just a general Linux user and you've never heard of GetDeb, where have you been? So, wonderful place. Links in the notes below. GetDeb.net. Okay. I could have typed it in the top bar. I didn't. Again, Discoverability. If you've never heard of it, you're never going to find it. So this one's going to be Discoverability, I would say probably in the yellow. It's really kind of word of mouth if you're in the Linux world, or if you type in repositories for Ubuntu or Ubuntu software, whatever, sometimes you'll run into GetDeb. Not usually. So it's definitely yellow. It's just a little, I wouldn't say a well-kept secret, but it is less than... it's just not as known as it should be. So, GetDeb. You can read all this stuff, but basically GetDeb is a software portal, basically a repository that stores a lot of applications that are not in the usual repositories, and it also has updates and upgrades to the stuff that is in your repository that are not a part of Ubuntu's 6-month release cycle, and thus not included. Word of warning, and we always had to say this, though I've never run into any issues, upgrading applications that are outside of the repository is always sometimes risky, just because bugs that were introduced in the newer version after the fact or have not been vetted by Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is very particular about who they let in, and they've even had older versions stay on because the bugs were just too prevalent, or they caused too many issues for them to support properly. That being said, they also are good about having security updates and bug fixes after the fact if they have added it in. So that being said, GetDeb has 2 repositories that you can add to your system, apps and games. Apps, of course, is exactly what you'd expect it to be. It is a place where you can find different applications that do different things. Everything from image editors to YouTube downloaders. I won't go through all of them, but there are tons of them. And then games, of course, for us out there that just love to play games. This gives you a repository to tons of open source games that are available to download for your Ubuntu machine. Most of them are pretty low spec, so you can use them on just about any machine that if the machine turns on, it'll probably run these games, is what I'm trying to say. Again, all these things are open source. Most of them are completely free. Some of them do have in-game purchases. I've not run into any. And actually, the game from the previous video Reddit clips is actually not a part of the Ubuntu repositories. As a make good, I have to point that out. It is actually from the GetDeb repositories. And that is the genius of these third-party repositories, or GetDeb in particular. All right, so don't be scared by all the text here. All you have to do is click on the PlayDeb package, install the PlayDeb package, it says. If you're using Ubuntu, this is an extremely simple process. Clicking on this little guy will bring up the Software Center. And of course, then it brings up the page that actually has the thing, sooner or later, whenever it's ready. There it is. Okay. Again, you get the warning, only install if you trust the origin. Okay. Install. Hopefully it remembers my password. It also shows you what the actual, sorry, you can't see my finger, what it actually installs. This package adds the PlayDeb repository entry into the sources list in the respective GPG key. Okay, GPG is basically like an encryption key. It keeps you safe from bad guys. And it also makes sure the system doesn't have any man-in-the-middle attacks. Somebody uploads a hacked version of this game or that application, and it causes issues. Now, it doesn't do much because it's actually not installing anything. So we're just going to leave that open, and we're going to go ahead and go to the apps page. It's the same process. Apps, click how to install, click on GetDeb, open Ubuntu Software Center. It's already open, so pop that sucker back open. Install, and away you go. Now, this package is of bad quality. Okay. I'm glad that actually happened. So sometimes you will run into this error message. It says package is of bad quality. Most of the time that just means that there was something done incorrectly in making the deb file. They didn't sign it properly. They didn't add in, like maybe their email address is incorrect, or maybe they didn't add an email address. There are tons of reasons why this will show up. Most of the time, again, if you follow this first rule here, if, only install if you trust the origin. I trust GetDeb, so I'm going to say ignore and install. As a fun little glitch in the Ubuntu Software Center, sometimes it will, once you say ignore and install, it will actually just pop back here and say install. And then you have to click it again in order to make it install. It didn't do it this time, but sometimes it does. Something to be aware of. All right, so now both of those guys are installed. What is interesting about this, and I would say it's probably one of the major issues with the Software Center. A lot of people will say there are tons of issues with the Software Center, but the one that I really have trouble with is when you install something like this, it doesn't automatically update the software list. So, like, even though they're installed, you actually can't see what's available from those repositories yet. Now, how to fix that? If you click on the dash and you go to applications again, I already have soft install typed in, so I can click software updater. Software updater will basically tell the system to read all the lists of all the repositories, check their keys, and see if there's anything new available on any of those channels. The GetDeb repositories also added one other feature that is pretty fun and pretty crazy cool. If you're just kind of browsing around on PlayDeb here and you're actually looking for applications, and some people prefer this over using like the Software Center or the built-in browser that the Dash provides, and say you want to install, oh gosh, I'm trying to find one that actually is pretty decent. Well, any of these applications. So we'll just do, oh, that one looks kind of interesting. Okay, they're basically Minecraft clones, but we'll go ahead and do this one because that actually looks pretty snazzy. It brings up a launch application icon similar to the what do you want us to do with this, but what they use on their site are specially formed HTML tags that tell Ubuntu to install this application using the Ubuntu Software Center. So you say OK. Ubuntu Software Center pops up. Oh, okay. And this is what makes me a liar. Okay, so what has happened is the software updater they failed to find it on the system. So I'm going to leave that in the video. I'm not going to cut that one out. Most of the time that happens relatively infrequently, but it does happen from time to time. A lot of times just closing down a Firefox, letting the system kind of think about what it's done for a couple minutes will fix the problem. But if everything ran correctly, you should be able to. And also, I've kind of caused some issues due to removing GetDeb's repositories and adding them back in. Sometimes the databases get out of sync, and it takes a little bit for them to resync. And they don't, they try their best to not get in the way of using your computer. So sometimes it happens in the background and you don't notice it, and there's no way to really know until it starts working. So if you type in, let's see, whether it was a free miner. Was not the one that we wanted, but as you can see, there's actually some, yeah, so they actually don't have it on there. What is this? Sometimes I just type in words. Oh, look at that. Sometimes I just type in words to find out if there's any software that does X, Y, Z. And sometimes you can find stuff, sometimes you can't. It's just kind of, you know, luck of the draw. So anyway, that is how to install these three things. Sorry that this didn't work exactly the way we were pointing out, but GetDeb and PlayDeb are amazing software repositories to find that are kind of third-party but integrated. As you see, and so for GetDeb, given that they are not really software, I'm going to give them an install being green, discovery being yellow, to do this out of order, and upgradability or updates being green, and now to put a little star beside it because it actually integrates so well with the system that you never even have to go back to the website. So those are three ways of installing software from external sources on Ubuntu 15.10, and then of course it'll work on earlier versions and probably later versions as well. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel here on the YouTubes. We have a Patreon page where we're always looking for support from viewers like yourself. The Ubuntu Challenge, if you haven't heard of it, we actually give real hardware to everyday Joes and Janes, which is the reason why these videos are so low level at the moment. That any money that goes into the Patreon account, even though I do have set things on the side for some of the other applications and things that we are doing, goes back into the Ubuntu Challenge or the broadcast network. The more people that we can have with hardware in their hands, the faster we can push the program and have more content for everybody to watch. If you have any questions or comments, or would like us to go over anything in any of the videos, please let me know. Again, you can add a comment to the stuff below. Patreon button is above us. The like and subscribe is somewhere around in the screen here. So, till next time, stay vague.